Hello and welcome to the Heartscaping Studio. My name's Shamanic. I'm an artist and mentor for creatives and visionaries. I've been nicknamed the Mindset Magician, and I'm known to do the spiritual stuff without the fluff. So if you want to up-level your confidence and your creative potential, but also live an abundant and joyful life in the process, then you're in the right place. So I want to dive into the topic of soulmates, because in my experience of working with clients from a deep subconscious level and on a deep spiritual level as well, I find that the topic of soulmates can hold people back and make them kind of confused about what they're experiencing and really hinder their confidence. So I want to share some of the insights with you that I haven't just read this in a book, or I'm not regurgitating this from what somebody else has told me. This is really deep integrated understandings of my work as a hypnotherapist and a shamanic healer. And I hope that they support you in your journey in understanding yourself and learning to trust yourself and what you may be experiencing as well. So one of the things that I have noticed that popular culture has romanticized about soulmates is that we tend to believe that a soulmate is someone that you meet and you just know, and then you just live happily ever after. That is not necessarily the truth, and it can actually be quite a damaging belief. Soulmates can be romantic partners, but they're not necessarily. What I've noticed is that most people, this is not true for everyone, but most people tend to come into a soul family. But the people that you are related to are generally your soulmates. So they can be, for example, your siblings could have been a partner or a parent in another lifetime, or your parents could have been your life partner or your child in another lifetime. So you're connected to them and you know them on a deep soul level. Like I said, this is not true for absolutely everyone, and I have seen exceptions to this, but generally as a rule, this is the situation for most people. So we have these really deep connections with people that can be also people that we work with. They can be childhood friends. They can be all kinds of different people. I've even had or recognized soulmates in people that are the partner of a friend of mine. So that friend is not necessarily a soulmate, but their life partner is. And I don't want you to think that this is like weird, or that, you know, the thing is, on a soul level, we have these really deep connections and a deep, deep love for these people that is not necessarily a human connection, not particularly in this lifetime, but generally we can feel it. We can feel that deep soul connection. And it can make it quite difficult if we have a partner, a romantic partner, that we know is a soulmate. It can be really difficult to potentially end that relationship, even if that is what is most soul aligned for us at this time and in this life experience. So let me explain that a little bit. A few years ago, I was working with a client, a few months of coaching together. And through that time, she made the decision to separate from her husband, which was a very difficult decision for her to make. And I take no responsibility in that. I did not tell her to do that or guide her in that way. My responsibility is always the most aligned thing for my client. And sometimes that means that they make the decision to leave a relationship or a job or relocate or to do whatever their soul is calling them to do that is in the most aligned way for them. And for her, this was very much leaving her partnership, because she had realized that she was not going to get what she wanted out of life, what she really deeply desired and deserved out of a relationship. She would not get it from her husband, which was very sad, but it was just meant to be. And the reason it was so difficult for her to make that decision is that we uncovered that her husband was actually her soulmate. They were meant to come into this life together. They had a child together. That was kind of the extent of their soul contract. And it was time for her to move on. But the reason it was so difficult is because she had so much deep soul love for him as an individual. But in their humanness, in their life experience in this life, it just wasn't meant to continue. That doesn't mean it wasn't difficult, but it was very courageous of her to take that step and to leave, because she knew that it was the right decision for her. What we can also find, and I've seen that this other particular circumstance, is that two individuals had been soulmates for many lifetimes, as in romantic partners, came into this one life together, but they were not meant to be romantic partners in this particular lifetime. And that is something that is very much felt and known by one of them, but the other one can't seem to quite let go of that desire to be in that relationship. And so it makes it very difficult because there is a deep soul love between these two individuals, but they're not meant to be together in this lifetime. And this can be quite difficult for people to let go of the past when they have, say, they remember a particular, we call this like the one who got away. We remember relationships that we may have had in the past that were incredibly beautiful, deep, connected relationships. And if they didn't work out, or if we have that kind of like what would have happened if we'd done things differently, that can be what happens when we have a deep soul connection. That could be a soulmate, but it's not necessarily meant to be our life partner. But that can be very difficult for people to understand and to integrate and to be able to let go of. So I've seen time and time again particular situations where people will appear in our life for a season, for a few, it could even be a few days, and they're not meant to stay in our lives. And I have a really interesting experience that I'll share with you about this. I went on a family holiday years ago, and I remember going through a very challenging time emotionally. Like within myself, I was processing a lot of things and I was healing a lot. And I was actually really needing to hold myself gently. And I didn't want to be on this holiday. I didn't want to be in this location. It was not where I wanted to be. I just wanted to be left alone at home. But there I was. And what I found incredibly interesting is that at the location of our holiday place, within the resort, there was a person there that I didn't actually get to meet that person or even talk to him. But I knew on a deep soul level that he was a soulmate of mine. And what my interpretation of this is that his presence there wasn't meant to be there as a friend or as a support system, but energetically, it made me feel safer and feel more held within the environment that I was. He was very familiar to that environment. I was new. I wasn't connected to the particular area, to the land where I was. And he provided that nest for me to be able to rest in at a time that my soul really needed to be held. So we actually didn't have many interactions other than just saying good morning. But I had that deep knowing that I had loved him, on his soul, and I had been in love at some point in our soul's history. And look, as a shamanic healer, for me, this is not uncommon. And it's not something that I necessarily need to over-explain or understand. It's just a knowing that I had. And it provided me with this feeling of feeling less alone and not abandoned in my pain, that someone was there for me. And I have another experience of this. When I was a kid, I had a bike accident. And it was quite serious in the sense that I lost consciousness. I was knocked out. And someone came out of their house and saw me and my friend who had fallen off this bike. I think I was sitting on the back of her bike. And he felt like this angelic presence to me. And I knew that I knew him, that I completely trusted him. And all that happened is that he got my friend and the bike, and we all got in his car, and he took us to my house, dropped me off, and my parents took care of me. And it was an interesting thing to know that I will never know that person. I will never know his name. But I knew in that moment that he was a soul connection who was just picking me up and taking me and helping me to where I needed to go. And if you think about this, I think everyone in their life has these little moments, these little things where, I've heard some people talk about it like an angel was sent to me. And what if it wasn't an angel? What if it was a deep soul connection of someone who loved you and didn't know you in this lifetime, but was able to support you in a small way at a particular time? And I know that sometimes I have been that for other people, and I won't list off experiences like that, but I know that many of us will have. If you think about it, maybe just me explaining this in this way will give you some insight into understanding a little bit deeper some of the experiences that you may have had. The last thing that I want to bring up about soulmates is that sometimes our soulmates can be the villains in our stories. And what I mean by that is that the people that you love and that love you the most on a deep soul level might not be the people who are the closest to you in your life. So I have had this experience a few times in my life, and I've witnessed it within dynamics with different clients where they have a person in their life that caused them a lot of pain in this particular lifetime. But on a deep soul level, that person loves them so deeply that part of their soul contract and their agreement that they have in this lifetime is something along the lines of, well, you need to learn this. And so in order for you to learn this, let me be the one that breaks your heart. And this was incredibly supportive for some of my clients to understand this in their experience of having difficult relationships, maybe with a parent or with a past romance. Someone who really betrayed them or really hurt them could have been just the agent of your soul learning a particular experience. I know that on a soul level, we don't actually come into this life and want to have the perfect life and want everything to work out perfectly. We do want to experience all of life. We want to experience all of the emotions. We want to have as many experiences as we possibly can. And we also come in here, like the way I like to explain, it's kind of like you've got like your soul has done a bit of goal setting before you came into this life. And there are different things that you have set out to integrate as an experience so that you can grow on a deep soul level. And some of those experiences, as we know, the things that make us grow the most as humans are not necessarily the easiest of experiences. And I have this relationship, for example, with one of my soul sisters. I call her one of my best friends. We have had a couple of lives together where I have been the bearer of bad news for her. And sometimes in those lifetimes, we weren't close. We weren't actually friends, but I was the person who was delivering that piece of bad news that ultimately was going to cause her a lot of pain. I chose to have that role in her life out of love. So this is something that I hope will maybe bring you some peace if you understand that some of the relationships that may have hurt you were for your highest good. And a beautiful example I have of this is one of my beautiful clients. When I see her now, I find it difficult to believe who she was 5 or 10 years ago, because she did not understand her strength. She hadn't yet integrated her power, and she was living with a lot of unworthiness and a lack of confidence and a lack of standing up for herself. And she was in a very toxic relationship. But what happened through this relationship is she got pushed into a corner where she was just so unhappy that it forced her to find something within herself and to decide one day that enough is enough and I deserve better than this. And she started to gather her strength, her confidence, and work on herself and ultimately become the woman that I know today. She is an incredibly empathic and confident leader who supports other women. And I think that that probably would never have happened had she not had that experience that really pushed her to her limits. Sometimes we need to back ourselves into a corner and find that rock bottom moment so that we can find whatever it is in us that is waiting to be uncovered. So I hope that these 3 things can help you and support you to understand yourself on a deeper level. First of all, that our soulmates are not necessarily romantic partners, that even if they are romantic partners or whatever the soul connection, they're not necessarily meant to be in our lives forever. And third of all, that sometimes the soulmates that you have can be the villains in your story. And it can be difficult to see the bigger picture when we're stuck in a situation, but we can still find compassion and love and grace for ourselves and for others, no matter what we go through. So look, I know that there are times where we all need a bit of support. We all need some guidance at different times. If you feel that any of this resonated and you'd like to go a little bit deeper in understanding your own specific soul and the experiences that you have uncovered, or maybe you're seeking clarity on the next step to take, I'd encourage you to go and check out the links below this video, see if any of the offerings that I have resonate with you. And thank you for watching. I hope this supported you. If you think that this content might be supportive for someone that you love, please send it to them, share it, and let me know in the comment section what resonated with you the most. If this content resonates, please consider subscribing, and I will then see you in the next one. Bye for now.